America's secret plan to destroy Russia. On the anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, President Biden and G7 leaders met with President Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss how the United States might provide more military aid and impose more sanctions on Russia, while the president of Ukraine vowed to fight till triumph. The primary objective of these sanctions is to make it more difficult for Russia to engage in a military war against Ukraine. The Biden administration also issued a stern warning to China and other nations against assisting Russia in evading the sanctions. Hi, and welcome back to another video of Finance Sense, where we cover all the latest trends in the financial markets and the economy. Before we start, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to stay updated with our videos. To mark the anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the United States provided $2 billion in armaments to Kyiv and imposed more sanctions on Russia. The measures including make it more challenging for Russian military personnel to get visas, restricting the assets of supporters of President Vladimir Putin, and prohibiting Russia from exporting aluminum. Moreover, it limits Russian finance and military production while also blacklisting the massive Russian mobile phone company Megaphone. But U.S. officials warn that additional sanctions may be implemented in the future. The White House has stated that they intend to increase the number of sanctions placed upon those involved in the technological or defense industries in Russia. Russian ambassador to the U.S. Anatoly Antonov argued that the sanctions would have no effect. American assistance, however, did not include the F-16 fighters that Ukraine sought. Officials in the United States are divided on whether or not this assistance will prevent the carnage on the battlefield from escalating before the spring offensive. Antonov has stated that the latest sanctions were mindless and designed to harm Russia. He questioned whether anybody truly believed this was the most effective method to persuade Russia to alter its actions and abandon its intention to use international law and the UN Charter to make the world safer. During their discussion, the G7 leaders vowed to assist Ukraine indefinitely and even broached the subject of perhaps imposing more sanctions. Moreover, the European Union nations resolved their disagreements and approved a 10th set of sanctions. The U.S. State Department imposed penalties on a number of high-level Russian government officials, including cabinet ministers and regional leaders. Furthermore, 83 organizations in Russia and 22 individuals are now subject to further sanctions from the U.S. Treasury Department. These additional measures have augmented the 2,500 sanctions previously in place in the past year. Additionally, more than 100 different metals, minerals, and chemicals that come from Russia and are worth around $2.8 billion will have to pay higher taxes in the United States. Furthermore, they want to provide $250 million to support Ukraine's energy infrastructure's defense against Russian attacks. Together with Ukraine, the neighboring country of Moldova will also receive $300 million in funding to assist it in becoming less reliant on Russia to meet its energy demands. Moreover, a Russian individual has been arrested for illegally selling counterintelligence equipment, indicating that the authorities are taking action in this domain as well. They also intend to confiscate Viktor Vekselberg's assets, including his $75 million Park Avenue apartment in New York. The United States placed sanctions on Vekselberg in 2022 due to his connections to Putin. Although sanctions affect Russia's economy, Putin can still fund his wars. Thus, authorities are coming after those who assist Russia in circumventing the sanctions. The Treasury Department fined over 30 individuals and organizations from Switzerland, Germany, and other nations for aiding Russia in financing its war with Ukraine. Although the Commerce Department restricted the exports of almost 90 firms from China and other countries for violating sanctions and supporting the Russian defense sector. Furthermore, the administration is making an effort to prevent components of Iranian drones from making their way to the front lines in Ukraine. The United States has warned that China may be planning to supply Russia with weapons, although they have provided no proof to support this assertion. According to China, supplying additional weaponry will only exacerbate the situation. The Biden administration has provided Ukraine with more than $32 billion in military assistance over the past year. The Defense Department claims that this covers a wide array of weaponry, including drones, rocket systems, and anti-armor systems. In order to improve the effectiveness of sanctions, Larry Summers, a former U.S. Treasury Secretary, has proposed increasing the price caps on Russian energy. According to Summers, the lack of participation from China, India, and Turkey in the economic sanctions against Russia has limited their effectiveness. Nonetheless, this year's predicted growth for the Russian economy is 0.3%, which is more than that of the UK or Germany. Summers contends that the struggle has evolved into a war of attrition in which one side seeks to exhaust the other. As per Summers, if we want to win the economic battle of this conflict, we need to assist the economy of Ukraine, which has suffered as a result of the devastation of cities as well as the fact that hundreds of thousands of individuals are struggling to survive. Summers believes Russia, given its wealth, should be in charge of Ukraine's reconstruction. This may be preferable to relying only on the United Kingdom and Germany. Meanwhile, Russian reliance on China has grown as a result of its isolation, and Beijing has recently proposed a 12-point plan for Ukraine that includes a ceasefire and the lifting of unilateral sanctions. But the United States has suggested that China may offer military assistance to Russia, which NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has called a terrible notion. Although China claims to be impartial in the crisis, it maintains close connections with Moscow, and as violence reemerges in the Donbass region, tensions continue to rise. The US was warned by China not to interfere in its relations with Russia. Everyone involved must maintain their composure to prevent the issue from worsening. Authorities in Ukraine have warned that further missile attacks might occur on the anniversary of the conflict, which could force the closure of schools and cause attendees at vigils and memorials to worry about their safety. On the other hand, the Russians haven't really advanced on the battlefield. According to the British Ministry of Defense, the Russian military currently aims to undermine the Ukrainian army rather than annex more territory. According to the ministry, the Russian government is wearing out Ukraine over time by using its people and assets. The Kremlin has recently made a number of public appearances, including Putin's pledge to bolster Russia's nuclear arsenal and a patriotic gathering to recognize the participating armed forces. Dmitry Medvedev, a former president of Russia, has also asserted that expanding friendly states' boundaries is the best way to achieving lasting peace. Throughout the year of the war, people worried that the situation might worsen, but there were also periods when they were less concerned. Yet, concerns that other nations would intervene have increased over the past few weeks. The Institute for the Study of War suggested that Russian soldiers may be preparing an attack that would appear to have been carried out by the opposition. This would take place in a region of Ukraine that borders Moldova, Belarus, and Russia. Officials from Ukraine believe they have observed Russian troops and vehicles that have no markings but appear to be on the Ukrainian side. By staging these attacks, Ukraine would appear to have violated international law in another nation, most likely Belarus. The report stated that Putin certainly believes Russia to be stronger than the West. It would appear that the video has come to an end. Thank you for watching this far. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give it a like, and comment below with your thoughts on what you've seen so far. This is Finance Sense, here to help you stay updated on all the most recent developments in the world's economies and financial markets. Have a nice day, and we'll see you in the next video.